So Willem, tell us about who you portray and how would you describe Leonard? I just told you, Leonard Seppala.
Leonard Seppala he was a real life character. This is based on a true story. He was a Norwegian man that immigrated to Alaska. He came there to find his fortune. That didn't really work out. So then he started running a dog sled. He learned how to drive dog team and did a postal route. So that's really how he started. And then he would competitively race because he was an athlete, and he was known as a good dog sled guy. So at one point, there's a diphtheria outbreak in Nome, and an antitoxin, which is very far away, has to be retrieved in order to cure the sick people in Nome. And there's no way to get to it except for by dog sled, because open air cockpit won't work. The train doesn't go. It can't reach them. So he makes this heroic trip to get the antitoxin and bring it to Nome. He ended up doing 260 miles of a 600-mile loop. He was eventually relieved by a relay of like 20 dog teams that on the average did 31 miles. He did 260 in the middle of a huge storm. So he was a man that was very tenacious, sort of laconic, but he has this relationship with his wife, a very strong-willed and smart Belgian woman, and beautiful. Yeah, don't get me started. And he learns a lot from her, and she's very central to the story in the respect that he could be a closed, rigid person probably all his life and may not even be able to open his heart to this dog that becomes a really essential part of his life. But through her belief, through her wisdom about this dog, about reading that dog, he comes to a new understanding.
Perfect. And what attracted you to the role?
You never know what a role is until you get there, but you can look at a script and you say, do I want to do these things? Is this interesting to me? Do I have to learn something? Do I have to discover something? Will I have a chance to discover something? That's what I see. The scenes were well written. The adventure aspect, the fact that I was going to be mushing, driving these dog teams in this very beautiful landscape under really tough conditions, that seemed like a challenge, and that's sort of the centerpiece of the action of the story. So there were many pleasures.
And Julianne, who do you portray, and what role does she play in making of this hero dog?
I play Constance Seppala, wife of Leonard, and she's the one that Togo is the runt of the litter, and normally this is the dog that they would try to get rid of, or is more trouble than it's worth. And she encourages her husband to keep this dog and give him a chance, and eventually he does. But I love that we can see this strong, independent woman within this relationship and this equal partnership, and they live by themselves miles from anywhere in this pretty hard landscape. It's up to them to keep this place running, and I love that she's not just in the kitchen, but she's on the roof helping mend the roof, and she's chopping wood, and she's helping care for the dogs, and there's a real closeness that these two have, and real trust and love that was really fun to play and really exciting to see on screen.
Mm-hmm. And what attracted you to this incredible story?
I thought the script was really well. This relationship was for me because that's what I would be, actively doing. Was the big draw for me, and to be able to do that with Willem, who was already cast, was very appealing to me. And I spoke to Erickson Core, our director, who started off as a cinematographer. So he had a very clear idea and this extensive lookbook of images that inspired him, and it was very beautiful. And his relationship, he had a wolf for like 12 years or something, so he has very deep connections with the canine world and nature. He's a nature guide and has done tons of directing in this type of landscape. We were in the Canadian Rockies, which is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, just breathtaking. So there were a lot of reasons to say yes.
So Willem, when went into preparing your role on this film? You talk about being a musher and working with the dogs. How many days of training? How did that end?
It's hard to say how long I trained because I was training for the whole movie.
Yeah, it was ongoing.
It was ongoing. But initially, they take me slowly. I arrive, and I started just being around the dogs, watching the people that, the professionals that have the dog teams, just watching them, and then slowly, like an apprenticeship, I started doing the things that they were doing, and then eventually I started, being behind the sled. So it was slow, but I trained all through. I had to, because although it seems like a very simple action, it takes a lot of finessing, and you do have to have a deep understanding of the dogs, understand how they're doing, what kind of mood they're in. It becomes, once you get past the basic actions, you realize that it takes a lifetime to be a good musher.
So Julianne, tell us a little bit about where Togo takes place and explain the rural, remote realities of where Constance and Leonard made their home.
The story we're telling takes place in Nome, Alaska, in both 1913 and 1925. It's one of the things I love about this movie, actually, is how they jump back and forth between time periods. How we're introduced to Togo as a mature dog, and then we're told his story from when they first meet him. And it's Alaska in 1925, so there's not a lot of comforts around, and their home in particular is miles from anywhere, and obviously no electricity, no running water, so it's very much about the day-to-day, the running of a home and a property and the dogs, and trying to stay alive in that world.
How did the cool temperatures help your performance? This is for Willem. And how did the weather and its unpredictability impact your impression of the reality of Cephala's journey?
Well, nature, in this case, shooting so much outdoors, tells you what you can and can't do. And you're always in contact with it. It's a fluid thing, and that makes you fluid in your approach to what you're doing. There's no arriving. You always got to stay on top of it because the target is always moving. The weather is always changing. So I guess, when it's cold, there's no acting required. You're cold. You're cold. And of course, you're creating a parallel experience that is not as dangerous, is not as difficult as as the true life story, but it gives you a little glimpse. It gives you a foothold, you're paying a little bit for the authority to feel like you can pretend to be this guy because you're doing it. You could not shoot a movie like this with, trailers all around and taking breaks every 2 minutes to get warm, and it was pretty rough. Mm-hmm. But we had a crew primarily of Canadians that are used to shooting in those conditions, and they were very tough, and it felt like we were on an expedition. So it put me in the mindset of doing this dog run with some abstraction. The reality of what we were doing, how we were shooting it, helped a great deal.
Great. And what did Erickson Core bring into the production?
Many things. Erickson Core, not only did he start out as a cinematographer, and he's often operating among other cameras. There were usually multiple cameras. But he has a great love for animals. He has a great love for nature. And he deeply felt for the story. He pitched me the story even before I read the script, and it's almost like I didn't have to read the script because he told me the events that were happening, and I just knew his deep connection to the material. And through him, I wanted to know what he knew. I wanted to inhabit what he wanted to express. And that's a good place to be when you feel that passion, when you feel that connection, when you feel that special information, and then you're going towards it.
And Julianne, tell us a little bit about the costuming that went in for this film. The incredible parkas created that looked like real fur.
Wendy Partridge was our costume designer, and she was just a genius with what she was able to make. Specifically, I mean, she did so much research on the period and the different, types of people, what they would be wearing, and those fur coats in particular. She had to create. They're all fake fur, so she had to create, because she didn't want each of them to look the same. They couldn't, so she created a fake seal one, I don't know what all the animals were, but basically she had to pull all these different faux furs to create ones that looked like real things. And so much so that, I don't even know if you can see it in the movie, but for her it was important that the framing of the hood are two paws like this, and she showed us pictures of those, and so she has fake, I don't know what kind of animal, paws. They were so beautiful, and the attention to detail. And it was so exciting the first time I put one on, and then she brought me into her workroom because there were like 9 ladies in there, like busting their fingers. They had to make 100 of these for Willem and I, and for background, and a lot of it is hand stitched. I think her care and passion and craft and artistry was just impeccable.
Incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you think Disney Plus viewers are going to react to Togo?
Listen, it's difficult. We're making a movie. It's on Disney Plus. God bless Disney for financing and making this movie. So I think it's a good movie. So we hope they enjoy it. Whether it's on,
I would say also we've spoken to a number of people today, and they had just gone to a screening, and there was a range of people today. And every single one of them, to me, felt honestly, deeply moved by the experience, and that it was an enjoyable one. So hopefully that will be the case with the Disney Plus viewers. And for me, it was exciting to be able to watch a film with my family, because my kids can never watch the work that I do, and we all loved it. So there's something for everyone.
I just want to say, from our point of view, we're making a movie. We're happy it's being made. We're happy that Disney is supporting this movie, supporting Erickson Core to make this particular story. And we're happy that it's at Disney because it'll get seen. But we're not thinking specifically. It's sort of after the fact that you think of it as a Disney movie.